object is a real world entity which has its own properties along with a behavior. Wherever we require some of the advanced information regarding a business, at that time we are going to have this logical database. So when we are storing the details or properties or methods of each object in a database, then we will be calling that as a object-oriented database. Hello everybody, a warm welcome to one and all. Welcome back to the last session of this chapter, this unit, along with the syllabus of this database management systems. I'm Rohini TS, Department of Computer Science, Vidhyaashram, First Grade College, the Temple of Excellence, MYSURU. So in our today's session, that is last session of this unit, along with the whole syllabus, we will be learning regarding object-oriented database and object relational database. So before that, we'll just have a quick recap of our last session. In the previous session of this unit, we have discussed regarding the file organization. We have discussed regarding this file organization, and along with that, I have discussed regarding how we are going to do the organization of a records in a file, then also regarding this data dictionary storage, indexing, B+-3 along with the hashing techniques. So in our today's session, we will be learning regarding this OOD, that is object oriented database. Along with that, we'll see about this object relational database, and then we'll see regarding the logical database, distributed database, data warehousing, data mining along with a web database. So all these are the different types of database. Mainly, what is the use of storing a data? In order to have a meaningful information, we are going to store a data. So if it is logically related to each other, then that will going to be stored in a database. So what kind of data we are storing? Based on that, this all the types of database separation or a classification will going to happen here. So we'll see the first type, that is object oriented database. Object oriented. So first you need to understand what is an object. An object is a real world entity which has its own properties along with a behavior. How can I say anything as an object? Let me consider this pen, right? So this is one object I can say. How can I get to know this is an object? Because it has some properties and it will going to perform some of the operation. That is what methods, right? What are the properties it includes? It has some height, it has color, and it has some brand, right? And we have paid something for it. All those are considered as what? Properties. And what are the function it will going to perform? So I can write with the help of it, and I can erase it, I can change the color. Those are all the function, right? And each object, so when the database is depending or when the database is storing a details or information regarding the objects with the help of object oriented programming, then we are going to call that as a object oriented database. It's a database that represents the information in the form of objects. So information will be representing in the terms of objects with the help of this object oriented programming. So here everything will going to be considered as an object, and object can be simple objects or a complex object. How can I say that as complex? It will be based on the different properties and method that it will going to have. Along with that, the data objects are stored with all their properties in the database. So when we are storing the details or properties or methods of each object in a database, then we will be calling that as a object oriented database. And also, then what about this object relational database? Already we know about a relational database, right? That is what we are representing every data in the terms of tables or a relation. So if it is a table, it will be a collection of rows as well as columns. If it is a row, records. If it is a column, field or a tuples. So here object relational database is a database that will going to be depends on the relational model along with the object oriented database model, that is DBMS model, OOD model and relational database model. With the help of those two, we are storing some information regarding the relation, that is with respect to the tables. So in the relational database, a developer needs to compose an object from the result of a set of queries. So how can I get to know the resultant of this object-oriented relational database? So we are going to have set of table. I need to write some queries in order to fetch the content from this table. So whatever the resultant that I am getting, that resultant will be considered as what? Object in the object relational database. Fine. So next, what we have, that is logical database. So we have certain data, we have certain information. That information representation will going to take place in the terms of tree structure or in the hierarchical form. Then we are calling it as a logical database. So if you consider the bank, so bank will going to have a different kinds of transaction, right? So it may be related to what credit card transaction, debit card transaction, or loan purpose. So if I am representing all the records in the terms of tree structure or with the help of some hierarchical form, then we are calling that kind of database as a logical database. So uses only hierarchical structure of a tables. So instead of having it as a what one by one, we are having it as a tree-like structure or a hierarchical structure. So data will going to be organized in a tree-like structure, and the data is stored as a records that are connected to each other through edges or a links. I can say this as edges or links. So all these are considered as what? Records. So each record will going to have its own information, and we are communicating each record with the help of this edges or links. And logical databases are special ABAP programs, that is advanced business application programs here, that is used to retrieve the data and make it available to application programs. So whenever we require some advanced business data which can be related to some manufacturing, sales, whatever it could be. So wherever we require some of the advanced information regarding a business, at that time we are going to have this logical database. And then so most commonly we are going to use this logical database in order to read the data from database table and associate them with a executable ABAP programs while defining the program contents. So whenever we are defining the contents of a program, at the time we will be using this logical database. It will be in the hierarchical format. So instead of having it in a clumsy manner, if it is in the divide and conquer method, then it would be easy in order to get to know what kind of information that it is storing. For that reason, we have this logical database. So next we have a web database here. As the name indicates, web. Web is related to network. If it is related to network, that is online. Whatever could be the example for this online transaction, it can be what? E-commerce, e-shopping, all those are online function. So from there only we are going to generate certain information or data will going to be generated, right? So if we are storing that kind of online transaction information in a database, then we will be calling that as a web database here. So web-based database management system is one of the essential part of DBMS, and mainly it will going to store the data or the information regarding this web application data. So here web-based database management system is used to handle the databases that having a data which respect to includes e-commerce, e-business, some of the blogs along with email and other online applications. So whenever we are having all these applications over the internet, at the time it will going to generate certain information or data. All those data will going to be stored under this web-based database, and also it is a system for storing the information that can then be accessed via website. So with the help of this web database, we are going to store certain data. With the help of certain website, I can access that data over the internet. For example, you can consider online community, which may include a database that stores the username, password and other details of all its members. So if I wanted to have authentication or who are all the authorized user, at the time we need to store the username and password. Some cookies will going to be stored, bookmarks will be there, all kinds of data will be stored under this web database. And next we have a distributed database. So which will be okay if we have a database to store the standalone data, that means which is restricted to a particular system, or if it is able to store a data for a different or multiple websites or multiple operating system, multiple computer system. So whenever we are storing that kind of data or which is not limited to a particular system, then we are going to call that as a distributed database. So basically it is a database that is not limited to one system. Whatever the database we have, that is not restricted to a laptop or a PC that you have at home. So this will be helpful in order to spread over different site. I can store the data of different site, along with that multiple computers or over the different networks of computer, whether it can be LAN, WAN, MAN, whatever could be the data or whatever could be the type of network, whatever could be the type of computer, super, mini, micro, a different operating system, whatever could be the things it can be. So there, if you are storing different kinds of data, or if you are storing a different information on distributed manner, then we will be calling that as a distributed database, and this is located on various sites that don't share a physical components. It is not standalone. We won't bother about what keyboard or mouse it has, but our main concern is regarding what data it is including. So they may be required when a particular database needs to be accessed by various users globally. So if I wanted to access the same content by multiple number of users, then we require this distributed database, and also it needs to be managed such that for the user it looks like one single database. So you're also going to book certain shows using Book My Show. Even I am trying to book a same movie at the same time in a same theater. So at the time it should not feel what different databases that we are accessing. It should look like same. So in order to give that feel, there must be some management of this distributed database. Fine. Then what are the types of distributed database we have? We have homogeneous database and heterogeneous database. When it comes to the homogeneous, it is of same type, or whatever could be the number of sites we have, all the sites should follow the same pattern in order to store the data. In homogeneous, all different sites will going to store the database identically. So that means of a same kind of methodology they are all going to use. But when it comes to the heterogeneous database, so here different sites can use different schemas and software that can lead to problems in query processing and transaction. Somehow this heterogeneous database will going to store the different information of a different sites by making use of different structure. But whenever we are accessing queries, or whenever we are writing some query processing and transaction, at the time there could be some problems with respect to this heterogeneous database. But here concurrent execution will be more. If there is a concurrent execution, then we need to take care about the ACID properties of a database. Fine. So these are the two types of distributed database. Along with that, where and all can we use this distributed database? Here we have certain application. It can be used in corporate management information system for the IT sector, and used in multimedia application. So from the different location, from the different regions, we are going to access the content, update the content, everything will going to take place in the multimedia application. At the time it can't be standalone, it should be distributed database, and then it can be used in military's control system, hotel chains. So whenever we are having a centralized system which is going to be distributed all over in order to access its content, there all we can have this distributed database, and mainly it is also used in manufacturing control system. So these are the different application wherever we wanted to have this distributed database system. So next we have a decision support system. So decision support system, if there is any system which is supporting a manager to make a decision with respect to its organization or an enterprise. So if it is giving certain information in automatic manner or with some logical manner, then we are calling that as a this one, that is what which is specialized format decision support system. It can be of two type, right? So one is transaction processing, or another one is decision support system. When it comes to the transaction processing system, it will going to have a information that record the information about the transaction, whatever the transaction that I am making, whether I am checking for the product sale, that information, and can I store it in a cart, or if I book it for a book, or whatever the courses will going to be offered, course registration and grade information of an university. All these are some of the example which comes under this transaction. So nowadays you all can see that this transaction processing system is widely can be used, and it will going to have certain, or it will comprises of vast amount of data information in it. If it is managing there, it would be helpful in order to make a good decision. So if you know the history of certain clothes or certain items, then we will be able to find the best one. So that is what the reason, in order to store a historical data of a transaction, then this transaction processing system will going to help us. Then what about this decision support system? Mainly it will going to be aimed in order to get a high level information out of the detailed information which is stored in a transaction processing system. So whatever the data or detailed information that I have in a transaction processing system, with the help of that we are making some decision which will going to be helpful for the future of an organization or to the enterprise. Then we are calling that as a decision support system. Mainly it has to use high level information in order to make a variety of decision. So that maybe will going to help in order to go further in the organization or with respect to any of the enterprise. So here decision support system help managers. So manager has to take a decision in the organization. This decision support system will going to help the manager to decide what products to stock in a shop, or if you consider the example of what products needs to be manufactured in a factory, or which of the application or applicants should be admitted to a university. In order to make a logical decision, this decision support system will going to help us, right? So next, what if I have a collection of large number of data, or what if we have a repository in order to store a vast amount of data? Then we will be calling that as a data warehousing. So here it is a repository or an archive of information gathered from multiple sources. We are not taking it from a single side or from a single source. We are collecting it as a primary data, secondary data. I am collecting the data from a web or from the cloud or from the databases. There could be different sources we have in order to collect the data. So if I am dumping all together, we are calling that as a data warehousing, which is stored under a unified schema at a single site. So just imagine, what if you are storing the details of all the users of a YouTube, Instagram or Twitter. So if you are having that repository or archive of information together under a unified schema with a single site, then we are calling that as a data warehousing. Very, very important question for 2 marks or 5 marks question here. So once the data are gathered from the different sources, then the data needs to be stored for a long time. So whenever I require in order to access that data, then it should be present in the storage device. So here permitting access to historical data. So if we got to know regarding the historical data about particular object or for the particular item, then that would be helpful in order to make a best decision. So here even this data warehousing is also going to help us in order to do that. The data warehousing provides the user a single consolidated interface to the data. So I need not to go for to have a Twitter account, YouTube account or Instagram account. Instead of that, if I have this one account, with the help of that I can fetch all the details. So that is what we can trying to do, or in order to have a consolidated interface in order to access the content of everything. So making a decision support queries easier to write. So if we got everything under a single roof, then that would be easier instead of visiting each shop separately. So by accessing the information for decision supports from a data warehouse, the decision maker ensures that online transaction processing systems are not affected by the decision support workload. So whenever we are making a decision with the help of the information which is present in the data warehouse, that should not affect on the content of this transaction processing system. By keeping that in mind, we have to make a decision. And also you can see the components of the data warehousing here. First we need to gather the data from different sources. So data source 1, for example, I can collect the data from database or from the web or from the cloud computing methodology. So there will be different sources. Once it gather, that needs to be stored, the storage of data. So that will going to be loaded to the data loaders. After that, the querying, that means I'm writing some queries or questionnaires in order to retrieve the particular pattern. That is what we are writing in the query and data analysis support. So after this, we are going to get some useful data. That useful data will going to be used in order to make a decision. So these are the components that we have in a data warehousing. Then what about this data mining? So I have a bulk amount of data. How can I get to know which is more precious? That is what we are finding certain pattern, or we are discovering some of the useful information out of that repository. We are calling that as what digging of that information is considered as data mining. The process of semi-automatically analyzing a large databases to find the useful pattern in order to make a decision. We are calling this process as what? Data mining. So here we are fetching a knowledge discovery in artificial intelligence. That is also one of the example. A statistical analysis data mining is also going to attempts in order to retrieve or to discover some of the rules and patterns from the data which will be useful in order to make a decision. Mainly it will deal with large volumes of data stored primarily on a disk. Whatever the data that we have stored on a disk of a database, at the time this data mining process is trying to retrieve the useful pattern or useful rules from the content which is present in the disk. And also this data mining deals with the knowledge discovery in the databases. We are going to call this data mining process as what? Knowledge discovery in databases. We are not taking unnecessary details or data. We are retrieving the knowledge. So data, information, then it is crossing the information, more than information, then we are calling that as a knowledge. So whenever we are discovering that knowledge in a database, then we are calling this as what? Data mining. I hope you all understood regarding a database management system syllabus as well as the 4 number of units. We are at the end of a portion of this database management system. Let me meet you in the next session with a model paper discussion. Until that, keep learning, keep on growing. Thank you.